Yo, what is up, fam? It's your boy Legend, and I am back with another video. You already know what this is just by looking at the thumbnail. What if Naruto was the strongest Soul Reaper? If you guys like this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe while you're at it. The like goal for this video is going to be 5 likes, so hit the like goal if you want the next part quick. But without further ado, let's just get into this intro so we can start this what if.
挽回
これが私の残白刀の真の力だ。
The late morning air in the Soul Society was brisk, carrying with it the faint scent of sakura trees still clinging on to the last of their blossoms. The stone steps leading from Squad 13's barracks echoed lightly under Rukia Kuchiki's sandals as she descended with quiet purpose. Her mission scroll was tucked neatly in the sleeve of her shihakusho, her expression unreadable as ever. As she passed under the Torii gate, the gatekeeper gave a respectful bow. "Be safe in Karakura Town, Lieutenant Kuchiki." She gave a nod in response. "Report any hollow activity within 3 rai of the town. I want to avoid escalation. This is reconnaissance, not eradication." The gate opened with the familiar hum of spiritual energy, revealing the swirling gateway to the world of the living. Without hesitation, Rukia stepped through, her body vanishing into the light. Behind her, Soul Society settled once again into routine. The shift from calm to chaos was subtle. Elsewhere, in the sprawling gardens beside Squad 8's barracks, a warm breeze stirred the long grass, ruffling the patterned Hiyori of Captain Shunshui Kairaku. He sat lazily beneath the plum tree, a half-empty sake bottle swaying in his left hand. His right lazily gesturing mid-story. Across from him sat his lieutenant, Nanao Aisei, who looked less than amused than Naruto Uzumaki, who sat slouched with a glass of amber whiskey in hand. And that's when Urutake fell straight into the koi pond. I swear, the fish are still traumatized. Shunsui finished with a grin, clearly enjoying his own storytelling. Naruto smirked faintly, swirling the whiskey in his glass. "Sounds like something he'd do to avoid paperwork." Nanao sighed, brushing a loose strand of her hair from her face. "Captain Urutake is a respectable man, unlike some," she added, glaring sidelong at her own captain. Shunsui made a mock wounded noise and dramatically held a hand over his heart. "Nanao-chan, your words cut deeper than my zanpakuto." Naruto chuckled under his breath. Though he technically belonged to Squad 8, he had never quite found his place within its ranks. Most of his comrades were either intimidated by his reputation or simply had no idea how to speak to someone who'd survived multiple lifetimes worth of pain and war. But Shunsui treated him like a nephew who drank too much and saw too much. And Nanao, well, she tolerated him, which was more than he got from most. Still, even surrounded by casual laughter and the gentle buzz of alcohol, a sense of distance clung to Naruto like mist. His true bonds lay scattered. Soifan was leading covert ops in Squad 2, her attention locked on shadows. Byakuya remained the stoic sentinel of Squad 6, Rukia always drifting in and out, a ghost with lavender eyes. Unohana rarely left Squad 4's compound, and Yoruichi, she had vanished entirely. Even Isane and Ranjiku were far, their duties keeping them tied to other divisions. His heart was a constellation scattered across the Soul Society sky. Naruto lifted the whiskey to his lips, took another slow sip, and exhaled through his nose. That's when he heard it. The softest jingle of bells, like wind chimes, disturbed by an oncoming storm. Shunsui stopped talking mid-sentence. Nanao's head turned sharply, but Naruto was already looking toward the bar's entrance. Glass set aside as his golden eyes narrowed. The shadow fell across the doorframe first, broad and wolfish. Heavy boots stomped across the tatami floor with no attempt at silence. The scent of blood, steel, and scorched cloth followed like a second presence. Naruto didn't need to turn around. "I heard you around here," came a guttural, amused voice. Naruto closed his eyes and groaned inwardly, and finally looked up with the flattest, most unimpressed expression he could muster. Standing before him was Captain Kenpachi Zaraki, towering, wild-eyed, his spiked hair adorned with small, grinning bells that swayed with every movement. His eye patch twitched slightly, barely suppressing the monstrous Ryatsu that coiled around his body like smoke. Naruto stared at him for a bit too long, then sighed. "What do you want, Kenpachi?" Zaraki grinned wide, his canines catching the sunlight. "A fight." Of course, it was always a fight with this guy. Naruto leaned back against the plum tree, retrieving his glass and taking another sip of whiskey. "No." Kenpachi's grin widened further, as if expecting that answer. Shunsui and Nanao exchanged nervous glances. Nanao already had her fingers inching towards her book of Kido incantations just in case. Zaraki stepped forward, his boots crunching over a fallen branch. "Come on. You've got all this power, all this legend behind you. Don't tell me you're afraid of a little bruising." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "I'm not afraid. I'm disinterested." Kenpachi's brow quirked, curious. "Why?" "You're not a swordsman," Naruto said simply. "You're a walking demolition squad. You swing your blade like a hammer because you've never had to learn any better. No discipline, no technique, just brute force." Zaraki blinked once, then laughed loudly. "You've got some mouth on you. That's rich, coming from a guy who fights with a damn chakra cloak and fists made of light." Naruto didn't smile. "I fight with what I've mastered. You just survive." For a moment, the mood shifted. The air grew heavier, the tension tightening like drawn bowstrings. Even the grass around them seemed to grow still, caught in the gravity of two forces who should never collide casually. Kenpachi stepped closer, looming now. "You trying to provoke me?" "I said no," Naruto replied, his tone like cooled steel. "Find someone else to get your rocks off with. I'm not your toy." Zaraki leaned down, almost nose to nose. "But you're the only one who might survive." Naruto stood now, letting the empty glass drop to the ground. His spiritual pressure didn't flare. It sank, drawing inward like a singularity, calm, focused, and ancient. His eyes met Kenpachi's without blinking. "If you keep pushing, Kenpachi, you won't like what you wake up." For the first time, the grin faltered, just slightly. A beat passed. Then, to everyone's surprise, Kenpachi straightened and stepped back, laughing again. "Fine. Another time, then. When you're in the mood." He turned without ceremony and stomped back toward the bar's exit, bells jingling once more. As the heavy footsteps faded into the distance, Naruto sat back down, retrieving his glass. Shunsui let out a long, slow breath. "Well," he murmured, "that could have gone a lot worse." Nanao nodded, though her fingers still trembled faintly at her side. Naruto remained silent, staring into the remains of his drink. He didn't look up when he said, "It's not that I'm afraid of him. It's that I might stop holding back." The sun stood high above the sprawling white city of the Soul Society, casting a sharp brilliance across the Squad 11 barracks. Kenpachi Zaraki stood at the edge of the training grounds, his massive figure looming like a statue forged of pure battle lust. The soft breeze stirred the bells in his wild hair, each chime a subtle warning to anyone foolish enough to wander near. He squinted up at the sky, his single eye gleaming beneath the eye patch. "It's been too long since I've been excited like this," Kenpachi muttered, a crooked grin curling on his lips. He wasn't a man giving to sentimentality, nor was he one to waste time thinking too deep about most people. Most fighters were weak, their moves sloppy, their spirit brittle. But every so often, someone would come along and scratch that itch deep in his bones. That irresistible pull of challenge, of danger, that hunger for a real fight. And Naruto Uzumaki scratched that itch like few ever had. Kenpachi remembered him well, not because he had a title or wore a special badge or something. Naruto wasn't even a captain, but what he was polished, dangerous, the only non-captain aside from Unohana and Sensui who had mastered his sword technique to the point of perfection. Even before he had a Zanpakuto, Naruto had already made his mark. It had been 9 years ago, the day the Soul Society had been breached amidst the chaos of screams. Kenpachi had seen him, a fresh recruit. No real training under his belt, no spiritual pressure control, and no blade of his own. Just a wooden sword in one hand and his fist clenched in the other. But when Ukihara appeared, colder than death and radiating a pressure that would crush any fresh Soul Reaper into the dirt, Naruto stood his ground. He'd lost, of course, badly, but Ukihara had torn through him like paper. And that Grand Ray Zero, Kenpachi still remembered the way it severed Naruto's arm in a flash of green light. But it wasn't the loss that mattered. It was the way he fought, gritting his teeth, pressing forward, never letting fear win. A warrior, even back then, the kind of man who knew war from the inside out. Not just a Shinigami, but as something else. Someone who'd been forged in fire before he ever crossed into their world. Word spread eventually that Naruto had once been a Hokage, a leader of an entire nation in the living world, a warrior of many battles, deaths, and victories. It made Kenpachi itch for that fight all the more, because now Naruto had his Zanpakuto, and not just any Zanpakuto, a blade that glowed with a seething orange chakra the moment he activated his Shikai. Kenpachi had seen it the day Aizen had tested all the new graduates. One second Naruto was standing still, calm as the wind. The next, his body was wreathed in burning chakra, a flickering cloak of orange that howled with raw energy. His blade was cloaked in that same energy, pulsing with the same force, the speed, the power. It had taken Kenpachi a moment to realize the spiritual pressure he was sensing wasn't just strong, it was alive, controlled, and directed. That was the moment he knew. He ain't just a soldier anymore, Kenpachi whispered to himself, cracking his knuckles. He's a real fighter now, a damn good one, and I want him. The urge to clash blades with Naruto had only grown since then. It wasn't about proving who was stronger. It was about the dance, the grind of steel against steel, the sound of a warrior pushed to his limits. Kenpachi's grin widened. I'll carve that strength out of him. See how far he can really go. Far across the Soul Society, nestled in the serene and flower-laden courtyard of Squad 4, Retsu Nohana sat beneath the cherry blossom tree, sipping tea in the silence of the afternoon. The blossoms fell gently around her, catching in her long dark hair. Her usual calm expression betrayed little, but her eyes shimmered with thought. Naruto. She had sent Kenpachi, not out of cruelty, not out of jealousy, but because she wanted to see him tested. To see how far her little lover boy had come since the day he first laid eyes on him. Broken, bloodied, and yet utterly defiant. She remembered every detail of that day 9 years ago. He had been wheeled into Squad 4 with his right arm missing, his uniform scorched, and his body nearly drained of all its spiritual energy. And yet, even as he prepared to sedate him for a surgery, Naruto had looked her in the eye and mistook her for someone else. And in a hushed tone, he whispered, "Hinata." Unohana had smiled. She had sewn his arm back on herself, every stitch deliberate. Not because she had to, but because something about him fascinated her. The sheer will in his body, the refusal to accept defeat. From that day on, she watched him closely. Too closely. As time went on and Naruto adapted to life in the Soul Society, Unohana found herself paying special attention to his progress. She observed his sparring matches, reviewed his written reports, and even intercepted some of his field assessments just to read them before her own captain did. At some point, it had shifted from observation to infatuation. She wasn't proud of how thoroughly she monitored him, and she had kissed him first. It had been sudden. The moment had overtaken her. After he had sat with her in the garden of Squad 4, their faces had been too close. She had seen that look in his eyes, the fire, the resilience, and before he could say a word, she leaned in and kissed him. And then she kissed him again and again. They never called it a relationship, but Unohana knew her heart had crossed a line. He was strong, yes, but more importantly, he was kind. He laughed, he asked questions, he challenged her, sometimes without even knowing it, and he had the gall to tease her, to call her beautiful when she threatened him with a scalpel. Now, as she sipped her tea, she tilted her head back and looked at the sky. A smile touched her lips. "Let's see how well you've grown, Naruto," she whispered. But her smile twisted as another thought surfaced. If she was being honest with herself, it wasn't just a matter of strength. She wanted him to be able to handle her. She was no gentle lover. Her power, her stamina, her presence in battle translated into everything. If they ever went that far, she knew Naruto would put up a good fight, at first. But once his stamina ran out, Unohana pressed a hand to her cheek, feeling the warmth creep up her skin. "I'd destroy him," she murmured, not without a hint of delight. Absolutely break him. The mental image made her heart flutter. Not in cruelty, no, but in affection. She wanted to test every inch of him. His body, his soul. She wanted to take and be taken. To have someone strong enough to match her. At least long enough for it to mean something. She exhaled slowly, her eyes wandering to a flower drifting in her teacup. Kenpachi would not kill him, she had made that clear. But if he couldn't withstand Kenpachi for even a short while, then maybe she'd overestimated him. But she doubted it. Naruto had survived worse. He had fought in a Rancor with a wooden stick. He had led a nation before even stepping foot into the Soul Society. He was more than just a fighter now. He was hers, and she intended to see him prove it. As Kenpachi cracked his knuckles and headed off to find Naruto. And as Unohana sat beneath the blossoms, smiling like a secret was folded between her lips. The winds across the Soul Society shifted. A storm was coming, not of chaos, but of clashing wills, one forged in blood, one sealed with a kiss. And Naruto Uzumaki stood at the center of it, unknowing, unbroken, and about to be tested like never before. Later that evening, the sun hung low over Ranjiku's outer edges, casting gold and scarlet hues across the cliffside. Wind swept through the high grass, brushing against stone and earth where few dared to tread. It was a remote place, dangerous to some, sacred to others, but for Naruto, it was perfect. He stood shirtless in the middle of the training ground, his toned muscles slick with sweat, glowing subtly in the golden shimmer of his shikai. His Zanpakuto, Kurama, rested lightly in his right hand, the short blade humming with raw spiritual energy. The fox spirit was dormant for now, watching silently from the depths of Naruto's inner world. His chest rose and fell with rhythmic breaths, but each movement was controlled, deliberate. He was practicing the slow circular breathing that allowed his spiritual energy to stretch further without exploding outward. It was a technique only he could use, rooted in the shinobi discipline, refined through Shinigami mastery, chakra and Ryatsu intertwined in every fiber of his being. From her perch in the branches above, Ranjiku Matsumoto crouched silently, eyes wide and fixed on the scene below. Holy hell. She had followed him by accident. Or so she told herself. She had been passing through the outskirts when she caught the pulse of familiar energy, fiery, powerful, but restrained. Curiosity led her there, but now she hadn't moved in 10 minutes. Naruto's back rippled with movement as he swung Kurama in a wide arc, golden trails following the short blade. Every motion was fluid, like fire dancing on water. His abs flexed with each step forward, each dodge, each parry against an invisible opponent. Muscles coiled and released like springs, and the tension in his body was almost intoxicating. Ranjiku bit her lip. What the hell am I doing? She thought. I shouldn't even be here. But she couldn't tear her eyes away. Naruto moved into a stance, holding Kurama low, his golden chakra surging outward into a soft flare. His eyes were closed, face serious. The fox cloak licked at the air around him in lazy tendrils. Even from a distance, Ranjiku could feel the pressure, warm, wild, and strangely soothing. She had always thought of Naruto as dependable, kind, strong, and focused, but this version of him was something else, dangerous, raw, and elemental. If I wasn't with Jin, her breath caught in her throat, cheeks heating. Gods, I'd claim him in a heartbeat. Her imagination betrayed her, painting vivid images of Naruto pressing her against the cliff wall, that golden chakra curling around her skin, his hands exploring her with unrelenting hunger, his mouth tracing along her collarbone while she gasped his name. She swallowed hard, legs tightened instinctively. Stop it, Ranjiku. Get your shit together. She shook her head, cheeks burning with embarrassment, as if someone had caught her in the act. She could practically hear Momo and Isane judging her from 1,000 miles away. Still, her heart raced, and a small part of her whispered that Jin hadn't touched her like that in years. Down below, Naruto let out a breath, stepping back into a relaxed posture. His golden aura faded, leaving his skin gleaming with sweat. His hair matted slightly to his forehead. He sat down, cross-legged, resting Kurama across his knees. For a moment, he simply meditated, silent and still. He's so calm, Ranjiku thought, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. He carries so much inside him, but he's always in control. That calmness, that maturity, it made her stomach flutter in ways she hadn't expected. Naruto opened his eyes. Ranjiku flinched and ducked behind the thickest branch that she could find. Her heart leapt to her throat. Did he see me? Crap, crap, crap. But Naruto didn't look up. He smiled faintly and looked at Kurama instead. I can still hear you laughing, he murmured. The blade vibrated slightly in response. Yeah, I know what she's thinking. No thanks to you. No, I'm not flattered. His smile widened. Okay, maybe a little. Ranjiku's eyes widened. Wait, what? Naruto closed his eyes again, chuckling softly. If I let my ego get any bigger, Unohana might actually stab me next time. Ranjiku's heart twisted at the mention of the infamous captain of Squad 4. Everyone knew something strange was going on between them, though no one dared ask. She sighed quietly, backing away from the branch. Her foot crunched a leaf, and she froze. Naruto's eyes flicked toward the tree line. Ranjiku, he said without looking. If you wanted to join me, you could have just asked. Ranjiku froze, halfway between horror and giddy panic. How long? She asked, stepping out sheepishly, trying to recover her poise. Since the second swing, he said, not unkindly. You breathe too loudly when you're flustered. She puffed her cheeks out, embarrassed. Was not flustered. You thought about kissing me, Naruto said calmly, 3 times. And you also thought about... Don't you dare finish that sentence, Ranjiku snapped, pointing accusingly at him. Naruto shrugged, still smiling. Didn't say I minded. Ranjiku glared at him, but her heart was beating too fast, and her face was too hot to argue properly. I'm with Jin, she muttered, more to herself than to him. I shouldn't. Naruto stood, retrieving his Haori from a nearby rock and slinging it casually over his shoulder. I know. For a moment, the only sound was the wind through the grass. Then he said, but that doesn't mean I'm blind, Ranjiku. And with that, he walked past her, heading back toward the Soul Society, leaving her heart pounding and her thoughts in chaos. She stared at him, biting her lip again. If I wasn't with Jin, she thought, he'd be mine already. But guys, I'm going to end it off right here. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe while you're at it. But without further ado, I am out, and I will see you guys in the next video. Stay blessed, y'all.